My name is Corey Isaacson. I'm the CEO and CTO of Code Futures, and I want to talk to you today about dbShards Migrate. Code Futures is the maker of dbShards, and dbShards has been in production for over 3 years. It's a totally battle-tested product, and we've extended that capability to let you migrate a database from any environment to any other that you like. Database migration is the ability to move your database from one environment to another. For instance, you might want to move from a data center to the cloud. You might want to move your database from one cloud to another cloud. Maybe you're changing vendors, or you might just want a disaster recovery site in another location. dbShards Migrate solves a lot of tough problems with database migration. For instance, how can you do the process smoothly and reliably without risk? Also, how do you avoid downtime when you're migrating your database? There can be a huge amount of downtime in this process. Another very important issue is how do you test your database in the target migration environment? You certainly want to make sure it works the way you want before you move to it. So you need to be able to do the process multiple times. You also might want to maintain a disaster recovery replica, so how can you do that? And another important issue we've run into is sometimes it's very difficult to migrate a database if you're using a database as a service provider who might not give you the normal access to the vendor's database management tools. Let's take a look at how this works. Let's say we have an application server and a database, and it's running in Cloud 1. And what we want to do is we want to reliably migrate that so that we have exactly the same setup in Cloud 2. So let's draw another picture of Cloud 2 here. And at the end of the process, what we'd like to have is the application server, of course, and the database server running in Cloud 2. So now that we know what our objective is, let's look at some of the typical approaches that we might use to accomplish this. So one thing we could do is we could use just a traditional dump and load process, where what we could do is dump from the source database and load it into the target database. That might work just fine, but the problem is that that can take a very, very long time. As a matter of fact, we've seen it take anywhere from hours to days. And so that would be really unacceptable because, of course, you can't write to your database in Cloud 1 while you're doing this process. Otherwise, you wouldn't get all the data over. Another way to go about this is to use the native database vendor's replication capability. This can be smoother, but there can be a lot of problems with this, especially if it's not tolerant of network outages, which happen quite a bit, especially over the internet and a wide area network. And there's another situation where you could be using a database as a service vendor and you might not have access to those tools. So actually that completely removes the possibility of using that option at all. Now I'm going to talk about how dbShards Migrate can be used to solve this problem. The first thing we need to do is install dbShards, and dbShards has two basic components. One is the dbShards client, which runs in the application server. This is a plug-compatible driver for your application. It looks just like your native database vendor driver. Then we have the dbShards agent, which controls replication across the two clouds in this case. It can be used for lots of other purposes too. And so the agents run on their own servers, or they could even run on the database servers. Now we're set up and ready to replicate from Cloud 1 to Cloud 2 in a totally reliable fashion. So now that we've done that, what we can do is we can start applying transactions using the dbShards client from your application. And what that does is that sends it to the database, just like it did before, directly to the database, and also to the dbShards agent, which again reliably replicates those transactions across the wide area network or the internet over to Cloud 2. Now that we've got transactions flowing reliably from Cloud 1 to Cloud 2, we can go ahead and dump and load our database from one cloud to the other. This can be done at our leisure. We can do it many times if we want to. There's really no risk here. It doesn't matter if it takes an hour, a day, a week, because we're totally covered because all changes are captured between the two clouds using dbShards Migrate. Once our load to the database in Cloud 2 is complete, we can start applying transactions from the dbShards transaction log to the database in Cloud 2. We go ahead and run this, and when it's all cut up, we're ready to do testing, or we can do our final production migration. Now we've got everything set up and we're ready to start running our database and application in Cloud 2. So we can start applying transactions, and you'll notice that in this case we're applying them directly to the database and again to the dbShards replication agent. And so now everything is being reliably replicated. We can use that replication stream to set up a full HA environment with primary and secondary for the database in Cloud 2. We can even use it to then replicate back to Cloud 1 or any other environment that we want to. So it's very, very flexible and you can do lots of things with it. So now basically you've moved everything over to Cloud 2 and you're ready to roll. As another option, if you like, you can uninstall dbShards and you can just run your application server in your database just in their native form. Then you have essentially migrated everything over to Cloud 2 and you have an exact replica of what you had originally in Cloud 1 with a totally smooth transition and no additional components at all are required. I'd like to talk about a dbShards customer. This is Genu. They're a software as a service provider for the small and medium business market. They provide online marketing services to a variety of companies. And they've also been working with us on dbShards Migrate. And I'm going to introduce Kim Albee. She's the CEO of Genu, and she's going to tell you about her experience with dbShards Migrate.
Hi, my name is Kim Albee, and I'm the president and founder of Genu. We worked with Code Futures and their dbShards Migrate product to help give us flexibility in the way that we have our SaaS environment. What's one of the most important things that we've got to do as a SaaS provider is make sure that our customers' data is there, it's secure, and that they have access to it, and it's not going to go away or get lost if there's a failure or a disaster. One of the challenges that SaaS companies have in looking at their cloud environments and their hosted environments is that if we want to move, we've pretty much got lock-in because we can't really take our site down or our service down for a day or more to back up the database, migrate it over to a new service, bring it back up, and then boot up everything else from there. The thing that dbShards Migrate does that is so amazing is that it can actually move our database to a new cloud environment without having any downtime while that move is occurring. So our service is up, it's working, they're migrating it across, and in this case to the Google Cloud SQL environment. And now we have the opportunity, we can do it, test it, we can do it and test it, we can do it multiple times. It does not affect our environment, our production environment, and yet we can migrate that production database. And then we can spin up new servers in that cloud environment and we can have it migrate over without barely any downtime whatsoever. This is freedom for SaaS providers and software providers like Genu. And it fulfills on our commitment to ensure that we have a disaster-safe and secure data system from our database so that we can literally have the response time we need, have the freedom we need to use the cloud environments that will best serve our customers.
That concludes our presentation about dbShards Migrate. Just to wrap it up, we can summarize the things that we've covered. You've seen how you can seamlessly migrate your database from one data center or cloud to another with near zero downtime. You can avoid vendor lock-in. You can go from any cloud or database as a service to any other cloud or database that you want to. You can perform your migration for test purposes as often as you like, so you can validate your environment. You can use it for maintaining a disaster recovery site, and you can continuously replicate your data around the globe as you wish. If you'd like to learn more about dbShards Migrate or any of the other dbShards capabilities, please feel free to contact us. You can contact us at sales@codefutures.com, and you can check out our website at dbshards.com. Thanks for listening.